I am joined here with Zack Evans, the Director of Sales for the National Private Lenders Association.
Able to disarm people in tense situations or have good timing on saying something that might lighten the mood can really fortify these relationships. There's some internet scrubbing that I needed to do when I'm not focusing on money is when the money comes. Having more conversations equals more deals. From the NPLA's point of view, we try to create an ecosystem where there's opportunities for everybody, every sector of business.
There's definitely a difference between having a contact list and a community, in my opinion.
It's not really about us, it's about the industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Calculated Interest. I'm Kerry Henderson, the Marketing Events Manager here at Asset-Based Lending. I'm so excited to be the guest host for today's special episode of our show. For today's episode, I'm joined by Zack Evans, the Director of Sales at the National Private Lenders Association, where he helps connect real estate investors, private lenders, industry professionals from across the country. We dive into why networking is one of the best tools an investors can have, how building genuine relationships can open doors to new opportunities, and why getting involved in the real estate community accelerates your success, whether you're getting started or looking to grow your business. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow investors. And if you're looking for funding for your next investment deal, visit ablfunding.com to learn how we can help. Let's get into it.
Calculated Interest is powered by Asset-Based Lending. Each episode, we sit down with investors and industry experts to break down what is actually happening in today's market and how smart investors are adapting. You've probably seen asset-based lending in places like Scotsman Guide, Housing Wire, and National Mortgage Professional. We've been doing this for over 15 years and have funded thousands of projects along the way. Let's get into today's conversation.
And I am joined here with Zack Evans, the Director of Sales for the National Private Lenders Association. NPLA is an organization that ABL has been a member of for many years. And this is an organization that brings together some of the nation's most powerful real estate investors, lenders, brokers, and service providers across the entire industry. So we're so excited to have Zack here to join us. And we're really going to get into all the nitty-gritty details about networking and community and all the conferences that we attend. So first of all, Zack, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. ABL is definitely one of my favorite lenders I work with, and I'm glad that we can sit down and have this convo.
Yeah, and usually I would say long time no see. We were just coming off the heels off of NPLA Atlantic City, so I was really grateful to have another NPLA in the books. So we're coming with some fresh ideas and some fresh insights. But first of all, I want to kind of get into your background, because not only is NPLA a great organization filled with many really fabulous people, but not all of them started out really traditionally in the industry. So can you tell us a little bit how you got into the career and maybe even a little bit before that?
Sure. So I kind of stumbled into real estate, right? I originally moved to Brooklyn, New York from New Jersey. I got a job as a comedy writer for a sports parody website. And I was doing that and stand-up comedy throughout New York for 5-6 years, and that job was mostly I would start at 10 p.m. right? So it was I wanted something to do during the day and something that would actually make me money, right? I saw an ad for I was the stereotypical starving artist in New York, a dime a dozen. I saw an ad about a real estate license and I responded to it, and they put me through real estate school and I started renting apartments. That started my journey into real estate. I quickly started seeing a return on that investment, because there was something my clients at the time would tell me, all the agents they would work with were so kind of in a rush and
Yeah.
very blunt, and everyone was like, fed up running around renting apartments, people losing deals, losing keys. So it was
Right.
chaotic. But I guess because I was new and I wasn't from New York, I was more like a mellow person, and I think people gravitated towards that in the craziness that is house hunting. And
Yeah.
I developed some by accident, like some actual loyalty with my clients, and I built up a little bit of a rental business, and before, within 2 years, I was working in a management position, recruiting agents in New York, where um, we really became one of the fastest growing real estate offices in New York, opening an office in Astoria, Queens, Prospect Heights, Brooklyn, Bedside, Brooklyn, all starting from a little kind of smaller startup shop and Bryant Park in Manhattan. Um, you know, Real estate, especially in New York, it's a very competitive, it's very tough business. It's a grind. I I had an in-house mortgage person that I became friends with. He would do trainings on, he would do trainings for real estate agents about mortgage finance, and they would help, pay for ads and open house stuff. And he introduced me to private lending, and I brokered a deal with him. And once that happened, that's all I needed. I was like, this is where I need to be. The return on my investment just for that time, that deal, I was I
Yeah.
was I was intoxicated by it. I didn't need a license. I already had like a kind of a good network, and I saw the potential in it. This was in 2017. So I was doing mainly like adjustable arm rate DSCR style loans, and the rates were 9%, and but people were just happy to not have to show their tax returns and get out of hard money.
Hmm.
And a lot of you know the sales in that early stages of private lending was about educating people that these products exist, right?
Yeah.
Because they had no idea, right? They just thought, it was conventional, or it was private. They didn't know that there was this whole kind of carve out for exactly what they needed for that particular
Hmm.
person. Yeah, but I, I, I had a lot of success in the real estate sales world, but it was, it wasn't, it didn't feel appropriate in terms of like the time and energy I would invest into it and what I was seeing out of it. And, we were still a smaller shop in comparison to the Douglas Ellimans, Compasses of the world. And every time we would train up a new agent, they start to make money. They would get sniped by one of the bigger firms, and that was getting frustrating. So I wanted something that was more up to me and that I could control and that I could build. And the private lending industry really provided that for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting because when you talk about your coming up in the industry and how you started, you have this juxtaposition between the entertainment industry and real estate, which I think a lot of people would say are polar opposite ends of the spectrum. But I would think, having worked in this industry, private lending, and seeing all of the movement of how people move around and interact, that there's actually a good amount of transferable skills you were able to get. Do you think there's any kind of crossover that gave you potentially an advantage as you moved into real estate?
That's it. That's a good question. Um, so, you know, that having a sense of humor is always going to help, right? Especially if you're in a relationships-based business. So being able to disarm people in tense situations, or know, have good timing on saying something that might lighten the mood, can really fortify these relationships. And as people always say time and time again, it's a relationship-based business, and I
Hmm.
think there's a lot of crossover with the flexibility of the independent contractor lifestyle and artist, that
Yeah.
sort of flexibility. But just on a being personable, relatable, and having good connections and listening to people has really helped me build those types of relationships. But
Hmm.
it as far as like crossover, I almost try to keep those. I feel like it's a totally different life, right? And a lot of people that know me just on the business side of things, like I try I don't even want them to know about some of the stuff I used to say back on stage when I was
I
in my
bet.
early 20s. So there's some internet scrubbing that I needed to do more or less, but I think overall having the courage to get in front of somebody, knowing that there's a chance that you could be rejected or it could not
Yeah.
go your way, is is crucial in both worlds. And building
Yeah.
that tough skin and determination um, is kind of that secret sauce, in my opinion, into the
Hmm.
success. What it means to be self motivated, what it means to earn all the money that you make and not rely on, I clock in at this time, I clock out at this
Hmm.
time. Every 2 weeks, this gets deposited into my bank. There's not That's not for everybody to live on the other side of that, where you have no idea when your next check is coming. So
Hmm.
that mentality, coupled with some of those kind of hardened, tough skin, facing rejection, the perseverance to keep going, I think those crossed over pretty well.
Yeah. And I would even go into saying like that human connection, understanding the human condition, able to make a joke on it and use it as fodder for some laughs, but also to build a network, which you've already said is so integral to being successful in this industry, is having really strong networking skills and being able to maintain that web of community. So,
Sure.
I think having that experience, especially in a city like New York City, where you're trying to come up in that industry, there's that you have to, no one, have your skin thick, but you also have to be able to really sell yourself and believe in it, and then listen to some mentors. A big part of what we do with the conference side of things is just to push networking and to get into rooms and start learning and talking to people. So that's kind of, I see it almost as like hand in hand, and then having your sense of humor always helps.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about how you're able to uh, connect people into new positions, but also be able just to connect them to resources. And how do you think like we get into that networking flow of your deal flow, but also flow of just like bringing in new connections?
Yeah. You know, I've found that like we can all be like honest with ourselves, right? We're
Mhm.
all trying to make a lot of money, right? But I found that, when I'm not focusing on money is when the money comes, right? And
Mhm.
this is 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 set up in a way that you don't know what this little act of kindness or this little conversation or this little help that could come back to you tenfold, and you just wouldn't expect it. So it is a numbers game in the sense that having more conversations equals more deals. It's that simple. um,
Yeah.
Being in situations in rooms and an ecosystem with like from the NPLA's point of view, we try to create an ecosystem where there's opportunities for everybody, every sector of business, right? So if you're an
Mhm.
institutional capital provider, we have originators for you. If you're an originator, we have brokers for you. If you're a service provider geared towards any of those people, we have decision makers that can choose to use your service at our conference. So what's most important for us is that we create the opportunities and the ecosystem, and make sure we have a level of attendee that is either bringing value or can add value in some way, shape, or form. Now, networking, there's no like one right way to do it, but in my experience, if you are in the frame of mind where I'm just trying to help, you're listening and trying to help. If you can't do something and you know someone can do it, like going that extra step and making that connection is what's going to separate you and fortify that bond, that relationship for future. I was just telling my colleague this like an hour ago. I did this random kind of real estate meetup group. It was like a South Jersey real estate investor network that meets at like a Muldoon's every once a quarter, right? And I we were doing an AC conference, and we're thinking of ways to get people at our conference. I'm like, what if I just go speak at this group here? And I went and I spoke to them, and I was like 15 people in the back of a bar. And I'm like just
Mm-hmm.
talking about the conference and the real estate business, and we ended up getting like everyone there like came to our conference white, and a real estate attorney that was at that presentation came up to me and connected me to one of his clients who I met, have a nice conversation with. Nothing came of it. 4 months ago, we funded a $3 million ground up construction deal in Seaside for him, right? And that was just from just going out on a limb in this random back room. Like in my mind, I thought the most that would come of this is, maybe someone will come to our conference. But I just went there to give them information and answer all their questions and point them in the right direction. And they in return, they looked at me as like a trusted source of information, and I was able to do a nice size deal on that just from doing that presentation. So that's just an example of like just going
Yeah.
into every situation, every networking opportunity with a positive mindset, try to help people, have a good attitude, be welcoming, and make the most of it, because you don't know what opportunities are in that room.
1,000%. And, I prep my teams every time we go out to a conference to have that open body language, be up and present, be inviting people over to chat and just strike up conversations. And one of the things that I love to tell them, especially when we go to a place like the Hard Rock where NPLA Atlantic City just took place, networking is everywhere. Networking is in the hallway on the way to your room. It's down at the bar. So you always have to be ready to pivot into that kind of mode. And you gave a lot of really great examples on what are great networking skills and strategies. Do you think there's anything like anything that would make a bad networking event or a bad networking experience, something that like somebody does or says, or um, just something that like is on the opposite end of the spectrum that you've seen in real time?
You know, when we acquired this conference, um, I a part of like me doing research and getting ready and meeting new people, I attended a bunch of different real estate conferences. At first, I had no idea how many exist. I was shocked.
It's incredible.
It's incredible. And and I was so underwhelmed by a majority of them because and I'm not going to name names here, but you can just tell that they just invite a bunch of people and cross their fingers and hope it works out,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And from I we could not operate that way, and it gives me anxiety thinking about operating that way. We are also at the conference, and if I
Same.
said a bunch of things were going to happen and I had no idea they weren't going to happen and they weren't happening, like I don't
Hmm.
know, I would walk around that room with I would be hiding somewhere. But at the end of the day, like conferences, they are a significant ask, and there's a ton of them. We are asking for a lot of money. We're asking for business days. We're asking for you to trust us and sign up for that loss, because you can make a return on that investment, because we have orchestrated an environment for you to do so, where there's opportunity. And that's by carefully selecting and searching for people and doing deals and making sure that X person's there, Y person's there. Because without that, we are just kind of begging for support 3 times a year. And that's not a position I want to be.
Yeah.
So like, in my experience, conferences need to really stress the value. They need to think about what makes up their conference. I'll give you an example. Not this year in Miami, 2025, we were in Miami, and we do, our early bird sale, which I bug you about 3 times a year and make sure you're aware of the deadlines. Well, we had this huge influx of like service providers register for the conference. And I just made a mental note of it. I went to our current signups, and I realized, like, we have way more service providers right now signed up than lenders. And immediately talked to the team, like, we need to cut off selling the service providers right now. Because our conference we are the NPLA. We're not a tech conference. We're not anything else. We have there's a certain reason why the industry has responded to us, and our numbers have doubled in the short time we've taken over. It's because we're putting thought into every detail of the conference to make sure we're doing our part in justifying that ask. So if I could say anything, or the experiences I would put in a negative light, I would say that not enough people care about those little details, and it's apparent when everyone shows up and they're trying to do deals, and instead they're just talking to each other about what they want to do after, really.
Yeah. And that's like a really prominent characteristic of NPLA, I believe, is that it strikes that balance. It is, like you said, the National Private Lenders Association. So we expect to be in a room with who would be our direct competitors. But the way the conference is structured is we don't feel like it's about competition. We really focus on that community building aspect of it, which is obvious a part of the NPLA mission. And what we really benefit out of it as another lender is getting everybody into a room, sharing all of those ideas, and not being on our competitive edge, and making it more of a thought sharing and market trend sharing experience, so that we can all better the industry as a whole and identify the areas of pitfalls that we see in the future, where we can bolster up our efforts a little bit. So I know what role it plays for the lenders. What role do you think the community that builds plays for our investors?
You expect to see your direct competitors, right? And what I would say is that what we have done at the NPLA, for the most part, especially on the association side, is convince people that, a couple times a year they can take off the competitor hat, and instead of being a competitor, sharing secrets and information, it is the sharing of information for the overall good of the industry. Because the NPLA has the players. We have the leaders in the space that are either members or they're attendees, and they come in all shapes and sizes, large to localized balance sheet lenders and service providers, brokers. But with everyone sharing information, that is going to keep our industry how we would like it, right? Which is unregulated, and self-policed. And if we're going to self-police, we need to set up the police force, right? Which would be what the NPLA kind of is, right? I always say we don't ask for a seat at the table, we provide the table, right? So we have everyone
Hmm.
coming together, sharing information to protect our industry. And we have a lot of like conventional mortgage DNA in our space that went through the '08 crash, '07, '08 crash and learn
Mm.
from their mistakes, and they notice trends and they get concerned and they share that information. Everyone can check themselves, right? And make sure that we are taking care of this industry at this very crucial time as we have more and more institutional capital coming into our space. It's more important than ever to be aware of self-policing and why we've launched things like the watch list and connecting institutional data for the benefit of our members. It's all for the greater good of the space that we've all, kind of made our careers in. Um, and it's not an old industry, right? This is a fairly
No.
young industry. So it is up to us, and we feel like it's up to the people who are the members of the NPLA to guide us as we, continue along this trajectory.
Yeah, and the programming speaks to that wholeheartedly. Just the conversations that are focused around just the way the industry is run and how we can improve and how we're all kind of maneuvering and strategizing within it. It's so great to get to sit in and listen to everybody just share their ideas and share their thoughts for the future. It's so important that we're looking towards the future in this industry. And you can almost tell that, there's investors that show up and just to show up. And there's ones that are really engaging. And when you're in the room with the ones that are engaging, maybe we can talk a little bit about that value of having access to those panels, to the exhibit hall, and the overall community is just so strong. Um, I really think the end goal with the borrowers and the investors is on display. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about how strong that community is and maybe how much has grown over the couple of years.
Yeah. So, you know, the 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 foundation of the NPLA was around before we got involved, right? So when we acquired the conference, it was a bit stagnant, and I think it's because it originally was formed around the idea of if educating people about hard money, and if you are a doctor or dentist, you have X, you're sitting on X liquidity, how you can make a 12% return on that money, and teaching people that this exists, right? And as we as we continue to mature as an industry and evolve, we are way closer to we closely resemble we're closer to Wall Street than we are to, let's say, the mafia, right? When it started, right? When it was hard money, pay or break.
Mhm.
The MPLA is trying to get out of that and kind of show
Mhm.
everyone this is a professional industry with very brilliant people that has products that have stood the test of time,
Mhm.
and have performed for long enough that we're really enticing Wall Street and the larger um, um, institutional capital providers to be more curious, and the rating agency. Everyone is paying attention to this space right now. So it's it's super important for us to keep everyone up to speed, put a spotlight on the players and the industry leaders that are very good at what they do and very intelligent, and think very long and hard about this industry, where it needs to go and what will protect it.
Mhm.
Um, and what I like about the NPLA is that I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral, right? We are just trying to help facilitate, highlight. Um, it's 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 not really about us. It's about the industry, and
Mhm.
and you know, from where the conference was, it wasn't always that way. And when we
Mhm.
took it over, you know, we were probably around 300, 400 people events, and we crossed 800 in Miami, the AC
Wow.
conference, which is historically our smallest conference because it's AC versus Miami Scottsdale, because it's a summer event and it's shorter,
Mhm.
because it's harder to get to, with no really major airports nearby. So so crossing 650 people at that conference is almost a bigger deal than the 800 in Miami. And then Scottsdale will be probably 700 plus, 750 plus, and that's only our second time being there. I think Scottsdale eventually has the potential to be our largest event. But
That's so
that,
exciting.
that I think that is the same mentality as the salesperson, the broker that just doesn't care about the money, is just focusing on the needs of the client, or the
Yeah.
account executive listening to the broker, or the lender listening to the investor, and just focusing on doing good work, listening, being straightforward and true. Like, if you approach it that way, it will in return provide that positive response. And so it's a consistent theme throughout. It's just focusing on help facilitate, making those connections, and it should work out for you.
Yeah. And for the attendees, that can be an overwhelming statistic that these conferences are growing. You have so many more people to connect with. You leave the conference with a stack of business cards like this. You're like, what am I supposed to do with all of these contacts? So there's definitely a difference between having a contact list and a community, in my opinion. So I just want to hear from you. Like, do you have, and can you identify any areas or behaviors that really turn those acquaintances that you maybe see once a year into trusted relationships?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I, I talk about this too, like the difference between a contact and a client, and like it's really just the relationship. Like, how many of my contacts can I text and it not be weird, right? That's like, right there will show you kind of who you have a relationship with.
Yeah.
I could text you, Carrie, right? That wouldn't be weird, right?
No, not at all.
You're a client of mine. That's how it
Yeah.
works. I I I I think that if you use the same kind of frame of mind of, not focusing on the rewards of the relationship, but just answering what their needs are, and focus on helping them, I think that will work. But what I've noticed, at least on the client side, is that, or on the conference side, excuse me, that the people that seem to be more proactive in seeking out conversation, or more welcoming in conversation, or more curious about someone's product, or asking questions, or just like from a genuine point of view,
Mhm.
will open up that dialogue and create the relationship. That's like on the conference level. Maintaining it is what kind of solidifies it, right? Is, are you checking in? Or do you remember what they're looking for? Do you remember what types of contacts they are looking for? Are you sending anyone their way, right? Are you referring
Mhm.
anyone their way? Um, like doing those little things, staying on top of mind, and being detailed in terms of what you remember, the notes, the conversations, what they're looking for, and how you can help them. If you can demonstrate that, there is absolutely no reason why they wouldn't want you in their, in their circle, right? As a
Yeah.
relationship, as a contact, as a friend. And for me, you know, dinners, drinks, coffee, golf, all these things are tools that you can actually, like, work can be fun, and you can connect with these people, build friendships, and also do business. I think that's the best of both.
I love that. I think that's such a good place for us to kind of land on. But before I fully let you go, I would love to ask you some rapid fire questions,
Oh,
just off the cuff. Like, I know, just off the cuff, kind of like your first instinct, nothing too serious, but um, coffee meeting or conference happy hour?
coffee meeting.
Best networking advice you've ever received?
I'm usually giving it. Um, it's been a while since I've received it. Um, everyone's here. Everyone's here for the same reason. Don't be, why be shy?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Biggest network.
Everyone's there to like meet people and connect, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not a secret, right? So go talk to them, ask them what they're
go
doing.
talk. Exactly. I love that.
Bring your
Biggest networking myth.
networking myth. Um, all I mean, that all are created equal. All networking sessions are equal. There's levels to it. Um,
Yeah.
I would say that.
One person who's had a big impact on your career. Doesn't have to even be in real estate, but if like someone from your past career that had an impact on you even today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, the obvious answer would be John Hornick, right?
Mhm.
My brother, what I was introduced, I was sucked into the Hornick orbit via my brother, who is his campaign manager for his mayor. And when he called me, I was already a part of his team managing his balance sheet. And when he called me to do the conference, I didn't want to do it. And he knows all this. I was in a good position. I didn't want to, start selling conference tickets. Why would I do that? It, but he was he was adamant, and I trusted him. And as soon as I actually learned, I had an idea of what I thought the conference was, or what I thought conferences were. Speaking to, there's levels to this. When
Mhm.
I went to my first conference in Austin, and I sat in on the association in person meeting, and I was like, you know how many deals I would have to close to get into this room another way? I was like, I think I should just take this shortcut right now because this is pretty cool. It was like being a fly on the wall, and a lot of like decisions made there will impact
Mhm.
investors across the country, and that was intoxicating. That wasn't very rapid fire, but I had to go off on a tangent.
That was genuine. I loved it. Okay, this one, last one. Fill in the blank. The NPLA community is.
The NPLA community is the place to be. The NPLA
Get your
community
tickets now.
is the place to be if you're a professional in the private lending space.
Yeah.
It's all you will need. Um, I think my favorite is like the newer companies that are like kind of just launching and need a bunch of things that I know exactly where they are, because
Mhm.
immediate impact, that's is very rewarding. You need a warehouse line. Oh, you need this servicer. You need this, and we just have such a good network of
Mhm.
experienced professionals. And John Hornick has done a really good job of setting the tone for the conference that everybody is expected to be welcoming and helping. Like that's like a requirement, because it can be intimidating to be in these places with very accomplished people. Um, but I don't think that's the vibe, and I think that's what makes the community so great.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. This
My pleasure.
conversation was amazing. I love hearing your insights on the community, on your career path. I think that our partnership in this industry has been incredibly fruitful for ABL. So definitely want to thank you for your time. Can you tell our listeners where they can find out more information about the NPLA?
Sure. Thank you for having me. This was fun. That went really fast. That was great. Um, my relationship to ABL is so good because you are so good, Kerry. You are a great contact, and I appreciate you. And I appreciate your responsiveness, and you're just good to work with. So every
Thank you.
every account exec, everybody is representing their companies, right? My connection to ABL right now is through you, and you represent them so well to the NPLA. You guys are a priority for us. You guys can find us. Our last conference of the year is in Scottsdale, October 25th to 27th. Our conference is at the Fairmont, and you can find our website at nplaconference.com. If you're a broker, we have our new broker certification course, which is something we are really excited about, and maybe we can talk about another time. But if you want more information, please reach out to me or somebody at the NPLA. We'll set you up and give you all the details. But we are looking to make an impact and make the industry better.
Amazing. Well, that's all for us today. To our listeners, don't forget to visit ablfunding.com to learn more about what we do on our end, and share this episode with your fellow investors if you're looking to grow your portfolio. Thanks so much.